Titanfall 2 mission BT-7274 marks the start of the amazing friendship which develops between Jack Cooper and BT during the game's incredible campaign. But it's also when Titanfall 2 begins teaching you how many of the game's fantastic mechanics work as well, and in this video I'm going to take a look at both as we explore the mission in more detail. Before we get cracking, here's a very brief rundown of what happens prior to the start of BT-7274. Militia Rifleman Jack Cooper is training to become a pilot, talented soldiers each linked to a giant robot known as a Titan. As the 9th Militia Fleet travels to the planet of Typhon, controlled by the sinister Interstellar Manufacturing Corporation, or IMC for short, Cooper's mentor and pilot, Captain Ty Lastimosa, continues to show him the ropes, but their training session is cut short as the militia prepare to assault the planet, which is where BT-7274 begins. Before we really get into the swing of things, I want to highlight how developer Respawn Entertainment integrates the visual of Cooper's lifeboat into Titanfall 2's title screen. It's not the first game to have done something like this, but it's nonetheless very visually striking, and Respawn honestly could have chosen the easy option of simply throwing the title up on screen. They didn't, however, and went the extra mile, and I think it's a good early indication of how much care was paid to even the little details throughout Titanfall 2's campaign. As Cooper plummets towards the ground, you catch a glimpse of his face for the first time, and judging by the panicked radio messages in the background, things aren't going too well. After a fade to black, you wake up in the thick of things with a battle between the militia and IMC forces raging ahead of you. The ruins of the 9th Militia Fleet's flagship, the MCS James McCallan, the ship you were just on, burn bright against the night sky as you join the fight, and as you push forward, Cooper is knocked over by an IMC Titan arriving on the scene, but thankfully Lastimosa intervenes in the nick of time to save him. After checking on a barely conscious Cooper, Lastimosa and BT do an admirable job of fighting off multiple enemy Titans before the pair are finally taken down by the fearsome mercenaries known as the Apex Predators, at which point Cooper promptly passes out. The next scene does a good job of further introducing a few members of the Predators and also mentions the mysterious Ark, which will soon become a very important part of Titanfall 2's story.
We have 18 hours! 18 hours until the Ark is sealed and ready for delivery. Oi, Richter! Leave the corpses alone, you sick bastard.
Not too long after, BT saves Cooper from a pack of prowlers before Lastimosa sadly passes away, but not before handing control of his Titan over to Cooper.
BT, transfer authorization to new pilot. Link Bravo Tango 7274. Cooper, take my Titan. Use my helmet and my jump kit. This is the real thing. Take care of him.
And it's at this point that the mission really begins to open up. You need to find a battery in order to get BT up and running again, and the first thing you need to do in order to get one is take on several fairly easy movement challenges while also dealing with a few more prowlers. This whole section is designed to gradually increase in difficulty, and the first few obstacles should serve little to no problem. Respawn includes solid ground underneath each jump so you can easily try them again should you struggle, and there's also plenty of ghost runners you can watch if you need a little extra hint as to where to go next. I'm not a huge fan of the ghost runners being included in the campaign by default, as I find them fairly immersion breaking, and I also believe them to be particularly unnecessary here, where the path of progression is rather obvious thanks to the numerous flat yellow walls dotted along your route, which are clear enough signposts as to where to head next. I can certainly see why they're included, but at this stage in the game I think not incorporating these hints and pushing you to figure things out for yourself would have been the better choice, as it gets you thinking about how to use the environment to your advantage at a very early stage. After clearing a couple of these easier challenges, BT-7274 then ups the difficulty by starting to remove flaws beneath areas as you traverse, but again these paths should prove relatively easy to tackle as you begin to get to grips with the game's controls. If the first few areas were designed to get you used to the very basics of movement, then this next area is set up to get you thinking about stealth. It begins with you coming across a number of IMC troops with their backs turned, so you can experience the power of a melee attack to an unaware enemy, and the combat arena which follows gives you ample opportunity to cloak, take down an enemy in a similar manner, hide, and then do the same again, thanks to the plentiful cover dotted around the environment. Titanfall 2 then begins to combine movement and combat over the next few areas. You'll need to move through them using what you learned at the start of the mission, while also putting your newfound combat skills to the test. Respawn also reintroduces safety areas here below the walls you need to run along, which is a sensible decision as it means you won't be overly punished for your mistakes during a section which asks you to do a lot more at once than anything you've previously experienced. There's also a DMR equipped with a scope to pick up, which can be used to take on enemies in the distance, a great example of how many encounters in Titanfall 2 are set up. You enter an encounter somewhat different to anything you've taken part in so far, but are given the exact tools you need to get you through it unscathed. This is Game Design 101, and you can spot it across many games if you look for it, but it's something Titanfall 2 often does particularly well, especially when it comes to the Titan loadouts you'll find later in the campaign. After finding the battery inside the wreckage of the Macallan, there's one or two jumps here where you'll most likely need to use the recently unlocked double jump before you arrive back at BT. The conversation which follows is the first between the pair, and as you might expect, it is very clinical.
Power at 2/3. Data core reinitialized. Ocular system online. Adjusting focus. Are you alright, pilot?
I think so. Wait, did you just call me pilot?
Yes. The late Captain Lastimosa gave you the provisional rank of acting pilot. Congratulations on your promotion. You may call me BT.
BT. Got it.
Compare it to, say, this later piece of dialogue between the pair during Into the Abyss, where the two have clearly bonded, and you'll see what I mean.
Pilot, are you alright?
Barely. That was a meat grinder. You okay?
I'm undamaged. However, I do not believe this is a food processing plant.
With my luck, this place is gonna turn itself inside out.
Or upside down, considering the circumstances.
As it turns out, another battery is required, and I've never been a fan of this particular objective. While it's not anything too egregious, I personally do find the setup of go get a battery, okay now you've got one, go get another, to be a little on the lazy side. Fortunately, what isn't on the lazy side is BT-7274's next section, which features the most difficult movement sequence you'll have come across so far. Here, your skills begin to be put a little more to the test. You've taken on easy challenges with a floor below to save you, you've done a little movement and combat at the same time, and you've tried out your double jump. And here, all three are required to get you to your next destination. I also want to mention the dialogue between Cooper and BT during this section.
Pilot, my mapping systems have been restored. The ambush of the 9th Militia Fleet has landed us far off course from our original destination. We are located in hostile territory. Be careful, we cannot stay here long.
You think we can survive through this, BT?
We have no other options. We will have to improvise and adapt if we wish to survive.
What I find interesting when looking at Titanfall 2, having completed it multiple times, is that BT, in my view, actually develops more as a character than Cooper does by the end of the campaign. That's not to say Cooper isn't changed by the experience at all, but it's interesting to note that BT's dialogue is definitely more cagey than Cooper's to begin with Cooper pretty much starting out as the wisecracking pilot you quickly grow to love as the game progresses. I think this was the correct decision by Respawn, as it stops Titanfall 2's dialogue from being too blunt early on in the campaign, and it also helps provide greater contrast between Cooper and BT's relationship at the start of the game and their relationship at its conclusion. Cooper's sarcasm isn't initially understood by BT, but by Titanfall 2's midpoint, you begin to see BT really grow into the pair's relationship much more. After a second opportunity to do some sniping above an IMC outpost, another clear example of Respawn gradually escalating the mission's difficulty by introducing harder examples of previous scenarios, you eventually find another battery. Heading back towards BT, you also take on one last movement challenge, a final skill check of sorts to ensure you have the fundamentals down, before fully powering up your new Titan and hearing his much quoted 3 protocols.
Protocol 1. Link to pilot. Establishing neural link. Neural link established. Rifleman Jack Cooper, you are now confirmed as acting pilot of BT-7274. Protocol 2. Uphold the mission. Our orders are to resume Special Operation 217. Rendezvous with Major Anderson of the SRS. I'm detecting incoming enemy forces. Protocol 3. Protect the pilot. Reinitializing critical systems.
BT-7274's earlier movement and combat challenges were built somewhat subtly into the mission itself, but the tutorial for using your new Titans certainly isn't, which I don't think is a bad thing. Granted, you're very obviously routed to the spot and presented with easy scenarios during which to use BT's abilities, but I think by only doing it here, Respawn just about gets away with it. As mentioned, it's not exactly subtle, but this is your first time using a mechanic not included in the majority of traditional first-person shooters, and so it's understandable that Respawn wants to ensure you understand exactly how to use your newfound abilities. When later Titan loadouts are introduced, you're left to your own devices to get to grips with them, but here there's a little bit more hand-holding just to ensure you're not left in a muddle, before you're then thrown into a much tougher Titan battle soon after, during the start of the next mission, Blood and Rust. Just before taking on your first IMC Titan, BT asks Cooper to trust him for the first time, words that pretty much become his catchphrase by the end of Titanfall 2.
Pilot, enemy Titanfall detected. We will have to fight our way to safety. Get ready.
You sure about this?
Yes, trust me.
On this occasion, BT isn't asking much, but it's lovely how the phrase is used multiple times throughout the game to help continually demonstrate the growing bond between the pair. And after taking down the IMC Titan in question, the mission concludes with the pair heading off to try and uphold Protocol 2, rendezvousing with Major Eli Anderson. BT-7274 doesn't do anything particularly special, but what it does extremely well. It beds in the mechanics vital to surviving the rest of the campaign, it does a good job of planting the seed from which Cooper and BT's friendship sprouts during the story, and it does it all in an environment which is very visually engaging. I think it's fair to say that it won't be at the top of most people's lists when choosing their favourite mission in Titanfall 2, but it does what it needs to confidently and in a very engaging manner, and the fact that the worst thing you can say about the game's first proper mission is that it's a very solid experience speaks volumes as to just how good the rest of Titanfall 2's campaign really is. Cheers for watching, boys, girls and pilots. If you had a good time, do consider liking, subscribing and letting me know your thoughts, and hopefully I'll catch you all again soon.